It was engineered well. I mean, kudos to Brendan for doing a great job, getting great tones and great sounds on everything. And I think part of that is because like that record probably could have been recorded anytime from like the 50s to yesterday. Like there's almost no effects. It's all just like regular guitars. We didn't own any guitar pedals. You know, it's clean amp tones. And there's, you know, there's like maybe 2 effects on the whole record and, you know, those couple little minimal keyboard parts. And so I think that's part of the reason that it has stood the test of time too, is that it doesn't necessarily feel like it's of any specific era. Like it feels like it could be from the 90s. It could be from the 2010s, 2020s. Like it could be from any era, which is cool. That was actually the first song this band ever had. I wrote that probably like the, you know, winter break right before we started the band. I had just got my first acoustic guitar and I actually have a recording that my friend just unearthed that we did at his house over that winter break. And this was the first song that I brought to Lamos when we started playing together. And that was in the FAC GCE tuning. So that was the first song I ever wrote in that tuning, which as far as I know, maybe I invented. Like I stole Vic's thing and added the F. As far as I know, that was, at least to me, I had come up with that. And then Mike played bass on that song. So there's only bass on 2 songs on the album, and it's just the 2 that he played bass live. Everything else is just 2 guitars and drums. So all the low end just comes from us doubling the root notes.
For sure would be one of the 2 bass tracks or bass parts on the album. I think Holmes's part moves so it's like really delicate and it moves so subtly that it didn't need it just needed a little melody. And so the bass is just holding the root notes, and essentially I wrote a separate song under Holmes's cool noodle. You know what I mean? Like it's like his noodle can go on forever and it would just like drift in the air. And then the bass sort of anchored it. Holmes's part's so floating, kind of go on forever that like, you know, when you hit like this other note, it's like, ooh, like this like exhale each time or something. It unfolds so slow. And I think it only goes around, I think he goes around with the bass holding, or maybe it goes around without the bass. And then, yeah, I mean, like the whole thing, essentially, it's just one cycle, which, at the time too, anything we could do that we thought was like different than verse, chorus, you know, we were excited to try and do.
Again, this one is about the horn melody. I think Lamos's part really kind of accents the kind of, the song is not in a minor key, it's in like a major 9. And he gives a minor feel to it that really just makes it interesting.
You know, I don't think we set out to make a 6/8 almost like quiet waltz or whatever. I evidently the trumpet part came about at some point. I don't know if it came before the lyrics or after, but it's one of my favorite little gems on that record. I could also go back and punch my earlier stuff. Like, why do you write these hard trumpet parts? Like, it starts high, and like when I do it live now, I have to kind of like modify it a little bit because I can't always hit that first note. But I like that melody. I think it brings something to what those guys are going for in the song.
I think like for sure, specifically like his trumpet line would dictate, you know, the vibe of the song, where it's going to go, and then he comes in small and drums, and then I would take over, and it was, you know, he set the tone. And I know I wrote the second note is like. It's like, Jude seems. That seems is like a note probably up until that point wouldn't have seen. Or it's, Jude seems too late. That, whatever those 3 notes are, is an absolute me trying to make Steve Lamos like me. I'm just like, what's a melody you would like? I'll sing it for you. And, it didn't come natural to me. But his like jazz background, I know that influenced how I was kind of like writing at the time, because he was introducing literally new notes to me. I worked within like these melodic configurations. I think it's probably fair to say we were all trying to like, impress each other. He was such a unique drummer, and I knew he had a jazz background. So on that song, maybe vocally I'm trying to, it's sort of my pop world, the way I'm moving the song. And then I'm adding maybe like his little jazz notes just to make him happy.
This was the first one that we tracked in the studio, and Mike had a cold the week we were tracking, and so he couldn't actually sing in his like full voice. So he was doing like this whispery take, and we were like, "Oh, it sounds cool. It sounds like Elliott Smith." So that, I think it was sort of just happenstance that he did more of a kind of a subdued vocal on this song that totally fits the track, and just was because he was under the weather and felt better a couple days later.
This is some of my favorite lyrics from Mike ever. I love them. It's so, oh my gosh, it's just like perfect to me. The way that they work, the vowel sounds he uses. I love that this is just a straightforward song on a record full of this, that, and the other kind of odd time or change. It almost reminds, even still, like some kind of like 50s, 60s doo-wop. That doesn't make any sense, but like there's something about the picking pattern that's really kind of, for me, it harkens back to something earlier. And I know Steve's a huge like Beatles fan, or something in the early days of sort of pop that would have been sweet and sort of, innocent in a certain way or something. And it links back to that in a way that, I still sort of appreciate. And the fact that it's so clean, I don't think it necessarily sounds super 90s. I think it's the cleanliness of a lot of the sounds that those guys picked are a little bit harder to pin down in terms of what decade they might have popped out of. And so that one, I feel like the way that song works allows it to tie back to something that feels, 50s or 60s to me somehow. It's quick, it's over fast, and I think it serves a nice, again, in the overall sequencing of how that record works. I just think it serves a nice little purpose, a sort of transition away from here's this teen angst thing we were just doing real loud. This is now a kind of a calming, and then some of the songs to come are a little bit more technical and a little bit more mathy. So it's this kind of breath like, hey, there's like a regular song in this mix at some point too,